The following program is sponsored by Tile Lines, and the opinions expressed are not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of this station.
Time again for Eyes on Washington with your hosts, Marty McClendon and Doug Basler, as they take a look at the goings-on in government at the local level, along with the national political scene. And now, here's Doug and Marty.
Well, this is it, the last week.
The last week of what?
The last week of standard time.
Oh, really?
Next week we go to daylight savings time, so that'll be great. We spring forward.
You means we get one less hour of sleep, is that
correct?
Okay.
And but we get, it's later, more daylight. I think that's really cool. And yesterday, of course, was March 4th, so we should March 4th.
That's right.
Into daylight savings time. I feel like we're springing forward. We're marching forth. You know, things are good. This is Doug Basler.
And Marty McClendon, and this is Eyes on Washington. And, of course, the award goes to Doug Basler.
The award?
Whatever award, yeah.
Whatever.
We had an award show this weekend, so no one watched it necessarily. But, I wanted to make sure that you got something.
Oscar's 90 and he's watching Fox News is what they said.
Oh, there you go.
So
right.
Since he's 90, he's obviously an old, whatever, watching Fox News. I was going to say some flatulent remark.
Well, isn't there something about that where it's about the older you get, the more conservative you get? You
Exactly.
realize it's your tax dollars, your future.
Well, Winston Churchill said, if you're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative when you're older, you have no brain. So it's kind of like, you go from, when mom and dad are paying all the bills, I'm as liberal as I want. When it's my money, things change.
As we've talked about, my son moved out recently.
Suddenly became a conservative, didn't he?
And he's funny. He goes, man, I didn't realize how often I left the lights on until I got my electric bill. I go, there you go. So he's turning off all the lights everywhere he goes. And so being much more conservative with his money. So.
Yes. Well, good for him. And, I expect more maturity out of him next time I see him. He'll be like, can you drive?
That's right. You drive?
Conservatives. It makes it tough to raise money for campaigns, though, because conservatives don't like to give money away sometimes, unless they're, smart.
Right.
And, but I wanted to talk, just before we get into the show too much, about there's a new steel dossier. Did you know that?
A new one.
Yeah, and a new aluminum dossier, too. So
I figured you were going somewhere that way, right? Yeah, that's right. Well, it's interesting, too. I know we can talk about this later in the week as well, but the idea that we've had tariffs on imports on steel 3 or 4 different times, and the previous times it didn't work so well for America. So, interesting topic. He's been hitting, strikes, or not, at least hitting the ball in the park on just about everything so far. This one may not be so much. We'll have to see.
I just think it's classic. Classic Trump. Yeah, let's go for the big woohoo, scare everybody, and then I'm willing to talk. I just want a better deal, right? But let's start off with this is the absolute worst case scenario. Barack Obama gets a third term or whatever, and then back it up. So, and we probably could talk about that later in the week as well. But Sam, you've heard of the Good Samaritan. Well, good Sam Nunberg. He is saying he's not going to comply with the subpoenas that he got from Robert Mueller. Now, Sam Nunberg had a falling out with Trump. So you think if somebody would want to comply, they got in a $10 million lawsuit with Trump for violation of confidentiality or something like that. But Nunberg said, look, Donald Trump won, this is a quote, Donald Trump won this election on his own. He campaigned his ass off, and there's nobody who hates him more than me. But he's like, this is ridiculous. This didn't have anything to do with Russia. This had to do with this guy, got busy, got to work, and he won. But it's funny.
There was an article in The Sun. I'm not sure how credible The Sun is this weekend, but we may talk about this later as well, or ask our guests about it. It has nothing to do with her race, of course. But it says that Russia now, including Vladimir Putin, is complaining that America is actually colluding to interfere in Russian elections, so against Putin. So, who knows?
Hey, it's okay if we interfere, but woe be to them if they think they can do what we do. Do as I say, don't do as I do.
Right.
You naughty Russian people. Of course they meddle. Everybody China meddles. Yeah. Japan meddles. Israel. They all meddle. They all get involved.
In the case of the Winter Olympics, they meddled more than we did this time. So that's not
the
good.
Winter Olympics.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that we just passed last week.
Yeah. Doug got the medal in bowling in that. It's not a sport, but I bronzed. I beat you.
You bronzed.
You gonna bowl me this week?
Yeah, it's time to,
You gotta get a payback. I'm giving you an opportunity
right. Time to go
this
down.
week. Come on.
Get back to normal.
Let's go to the phone. Why don't we go to the phone? Why don't you introduce our guest for a change?
That's good. We have Elizabeth Scott. Elizabeth Scott used to be the state rep up in the 39th, served a couple terms. She was, in 2016, stepped out, was going to run against Del Bene for Congress. And I was looking forward to calling her Congresswoman, Elizabeth Scott. She had some health issues going on. We'll still talk about that with her. But she's back in the race, going to run for the senator position in the 39th to take Kirk Pearson's old seat. And so she is loved by many across the state.
Loved by many.
Conservative, strong, you know it. So anyway, Elizabeth
Generally
Scott,
speaking, though,
yes.
when you're loved by many, it
Yes.
means there's other people that don't love
Yes,
you.
yes.
And I think
I'm finding that out,
I think
by the way.
Elizabeth Scott would qualify for that, which is why we like her. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And you're right. There are a few enemies out there, along with the myriad of friends. So,
Well, I know there's a
it
quote.
goes that way.
I know there's a quote out there. Basically, if you don't have enemies, you're not doing the right thing, right? Basically, you're not moving the needle enough or fighting for the right things without having opposition. So, obviously, you align with what we believe in here. On the
Well,
show,
a person
so,
is defined by who doesn't like them, too. I mean, when you have all the right people not liking you, then that makes me like you, right? My enemy's enemy is my friend. But in this case, Elizabeth's my friend anyway.
Yes.
But. So you got back into this race. You've jumped back in, and nobody was happier to hear that than me. Well, maybe some people were happier, but I was pretty happy about it.
Thank you.
Why are you back?
Well, because the 39th legislative district deserves an accurate voice and a voice of principle. So, and there was an appointment process, of course, for the Senate position, and I tried for it, didn't win. It came down to the votes of 17 council members from King County Council, Snohomish County Council, and the 3 Skagit Board of Commissioners. And of those 17 people who got to vote and select the person who will serve in Kirk's seat for this year, till the next special election in November, those 17 people, 14 of them don't represent a single soul in my district. They represent other territories. And 11 of the 17 were Democrats. So I thought to myself, why don't we just hear what the people of the district have to say? Because that's what it's all about, right? Being a voice for the district.
I know. Let's do that.
it's way too rational. way too rational.
What do the voters want? Okay. Why don't we find out?
So for our listeners' sake as well, we've talked about this before, but last time I was participant in this was Phil Fortunato getting appointed to the senator position in 2016. He had to run for re-election in 2017, or election, should say. And now he's going to run again in 2018 to make sure he keeps the seat. So the appointment process happens when a sitting person in the seat basically leaves, resigns, whatever, steps down. In this case, Kirk took a job, and so that position is replaced by the party. Is that correct? Tell us about
That is correct. So the first phase of that replacement is that the local grassroots party members of the party of the person who stepped down. So these are the PCOs, precinct committee officers. They nominate people who are interested in running, and then they vote and narrow it down to 3. Then they submit those 3 names to the county councils of the counties that have at least a piece of that legislative district. So in my case, it was King, Snohomish, and Skagit.
That's a whole lot of people. I've done the 2-county thing, not the 3-county thing before. So, okay, so that came out. So when the PCOs elected 3 people, you were one of those 3. Were you
Correct.
number 1, 2, or 3 in that regard?
I won the first round, but then when there were several of us in, but then it wasn't over 50%, so they did another vote of the PCOs, and that time Keith Wagner, who was the former mayor of Cedar Woolley, voted for himself because he was a sitting PCO, and he had told people publicly that he was going to do that he supported me and he was going to vote for me on the first round, but that he would vote for himself on the second round. So he did, and he was able to get over that 50% mark, so he became the top nominee of the PCOs. And then I was second, and then Georgine Ferris was third.
Yeah, and Georgine's a good friend of mine as well. I don't know the first person, but it sounds like your difference was 1 vote there. I mean, his vote made the difference, so it's pretty close. And I know that the councils don't have to pick in order, 1, 2, or 3. They can pick any one of those that they think would do the best. So like you said,
That's correct.
yeah, 11 Democrats, only, how many were in the district that actually represents your district?
So only 3 represented anybody in the district. My King County portion of the 39th Legislative District, that's up near Skykomish, up at the top of Highway 2 before it goes over the mountains. And there's only a couple hundred voters up there, but they did support me in 2014, so they do matter. But just because there was that piece of King, that allowed the 9 King County council members to have their say in the second and final stage of that appointment process.
Well, we're speaking with Elizabeth Scott. She's back in the saddle, as they should say. 39th District State Senator race. You can see her website is Elizabeth4state.com. And we're going to be back with more because that's what we do. That's our thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we're into. This is Doug Basler.
Second helpings here for Marty McClendon on Eyes on Washington.
Seconds and thirds.
Maybe fourth.
Get your morning started right off with me, Hugh Hewitt, weekdays from 6 to 9. And now back to Doug and Marty with Eyes on Washington. You're on AM 1590, The Answer.
I like it when he introduces us. This is Doug Basler.
And Marty McClendon, back for the second scoop of the show, right?
There we go. Donald Trump.
That's right.
2 scoops for you.
2 scoops.
1 scoop for Doug.
There we go. I like that.
I don't know.
Well,
It could happen.
Double, right?
No, it's not
I'll
going to
double
happen.
portion. Come
There's
on.
no way you're getting 2 scoops and I'm not getting 2 scoops, bro.
I've been
hanging out
probably
too
eat
long.
more than me. That's right. When it comes down to that. So
Definitely. Our guest by way of telephone is Elizabeth Scott, former state rep, and also now a candidate for state senator in the 39th district, which is up north.
A
ways.
That's right.
Some of King's in there. You know, I'm a big fan of King County because I'm, kind of like in King County.
Right. Well, last week I was up there on a little event to kick off with her. And it was fantastic, of course. And there was snow up there still, by the way.
Yes.
Up in them there hills.
I had snow this morning at my place.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ready for spring.
You and me both. So, Elizabeth, I know that you were out for a couple years now. I know the reason you run because you care and you bring something to the table. So talk about the current condition. You see what happened this year in Olympia.
Right. So
what are you going to bring?
It's an uphill battle when the Republicans are in the minority, and of course we're 1 down in the Senate and 2 down in the House. If we pick those up, then we'll have control again. We can get some more of these good bills through and stop more of the bad bills. Some of the bad bills were able to be stopped this session, which is good. But there were some things that affect my district, and frankly the whole state, but particularly my district, that I think should have gotten more attention and a better fix. So many of you, I'm sure you guys talked on your show about the so-called Hearst Fix bill. I use the word so-called because it didn't fix anything in Skagit County, which is a large part of my district. I went into great detail on the website at elizabeth4state.com about the water issue because it is kind of complicated. But in a nutshell, there are 6,000 property owners along the Skagit River who were told in 2013 that they couldn't use their already permitted wells. I mean, they had already gone through the whole permitting process with Department of Ecology and the county, and they had been given permission to have these wells, which should be exempt from the water law. But as of that ruling in 2013, they're not. And the reason is that the Swinomish tribe complained and said that probably, well, they think if people dig a well, then that will affect the water level in the Skagit River, and that could affect how many salmon we have going through that river. The court ended up fighting with the Swinomish tribe on that. And the Hearst Fix bill that was passed at the beginning of this session did fix some things for the rest of the state because they were up in the air too about whether they could build and add more wells. But that bill actually deliberately left Skagit County out. So there are a lot of people still hurting up there and others who are just not thrilled at all about the growth of government that we're seeing every year. It seems like, frankly, no matter which party's in control. Perhaps it's worse. It is worse, definitely, when the Democrats are in control. But there were some issues in the last couple of years where people just got really frustrated and said, you know what, we want someone who fights for smaller, smarter government. We want somebody who will really actively fight for lower taxes and not totally increasing the budget every year, every 2 years. The budget, the operating budget is sort of like the biggest checking account, if you will. for the state legislature. And that number of the operating budget is usually the only one that the newspapers talk about. But if you look at total overall state spending, that's all the checking accounts that the state legislature has, including capital budget, transportation, and so on. If you look at that, it's well over $93 billion now for a 2-year budget. Now, not just for comparison, in around the year 2000, we were at $40 billion total. So it's more than doubled since the year 2000. So, and if you ask people, whether in my district or not, if you ask them, do you feel like the roads are twice as good and twice as easy as they were in the year 2000? Everybody just laughs. Is education twice as good as it was in 2000? No. You still got 1 out of 5 kids dropping out before finishing high school. You still have over half of the kids who do finish high school needing, math or composition backup classes, high school level or even earlier, before they can take Comp 101 or Math 101 at the local community college. So I think a lot of people just feel like we're not getting our money's worth.
Boy,
I think you've got a math problem there, obviously, when it thinks about it's inversely proportional. She spends twice the amount of money for half the amount of
there you
output.
Go.
There you go. See?
Right.
See, Marty's smart.
It's
he
inversely.
knows
You
stuff.
have to turn that around.
I don't know if what he knows is accurate, but he knows stuff. So
hey, you mentioned the Swinomish tribe. Before we go too far, I know it's probably not one of your website or your campaign topics, but in 2016 there was an attempt by the tribe up there to basically grow the reservation, take away some property, and actually do a tax shift from those taxpayers to those that would be paying taxes still, will be paying more taxes. Any more developments on that?
Not that I'm aware of, but it is a problem, and this again is a statewide problem. When you have a tribe, okay, they're sovereign, but they're still accepting tax dollars from state and federal, and they use services provided by our tax dollars. For example, fire trucks. For example, there's no fire trucks who can that are owned by the tribes, to put out a fire, say in Marysville at the mall or something. They call on the local services funded by tax dollars to come help them out. So, when they buy more land or get control of more land, and then that land is taken off of the county property taxes, what that does is, you mentioned tax shift, but I just want to make it clear to people, that means that your slice of the tax pie just got bigger. Okay? Because the way the county budget works is the county council decides how much money they need for their budget, and then they divide that up among the properties. So if you take some of those properties out and make them, non-tax bearing, then that ends up making my slice of the pie and your slice of the pie, tax pie, bigger. So it gets heavier and heavier on the property owners.
Which would be in addition to your property tax increase already, your school taxes, your property, and so on and so on. Then each SC3 taxes, you name it, across this region. And of course, it seems like they're taxing everything, which is why we want someone like you that said, you know what, limited government, less taxes, more freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Second Amendment, because there's a heck of a lot of stuff going on in Olympia this week.
Yep.
About gun control and how that's going to help us. I know you're in favor of scanning big, scary trucks and kitchen knives and things like that as well. Get the violence down.
And anybody with a scary-looking fist or foot should probably go, too.
Scary-looking fist, I'm with you. Let's get rid of that.
Caused a number of deaths in our country every year.
Yeah, so I've obviously got that off of your website. People use trucks to commit crimes, but we don't have let's ban big, scary-looking trucks.
Right.
What if someone gives me a scary look? How about that?
Ban scary looks?
Yeah, I think it'd be good. Yeah.
Are you trying to get rid of me, brother?
I think that's what the ban on the AR-15 is all about. It's black. It looks scary. It's got things that poke out that most people don't know what they're for. So I think it's just ludicrous. And it won't stop there. I think one good thing that's happening recently is that more and more people are saying, now we do know that you really are coming after our guns, that you want the guns. You want them all registered. You want us registered so that you can come and knock on our door and take the guns that we have. And if you sit down and talk to some liberals, now more and more of them will admit it to your face. I've had that happen just in the last couple of weeks, that they do. They will admit that they do want to take our guns, all of them. So I think I've come down, everybody knows this about me, for the last probably 8 years, I've said we've got enough gun laws. We're not enforcing the ones that are out there on the books already. And we don't need to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves. So we don't need other additional gun laws. We should probably loosen them up, especially the, so-called gun-free zones. I mean, that just makes people in that area a sitting duck, because how can they fight back? So it's only the bad guys who have guns in those areas.
Exactly right. It's just one of those things. It's insanity. Doug and I were talking off the air. There's this billboard that was put up by a former Clinton staffer in Vegas this last weekend, and it says the NRA is a terrorist organization. Basically, they're doing an all-out assault on our Second Amendment rights. And we know that once you register, you can confiscate. When you confiscate, you disarm your citizens, which means leads to more government control, more power, and we have no way to defend ourselves. Right.
Right. I'm proud to live in this district, actually, the 39th, because there are more gun owners in Snohomish County than in any other county in the state, and at least a higher proportion of the population. I think that's amazing. But where I live, I've seen a bobcat walk across my driveway. One of my neighbors actually photographed and put on Facebook it was a pair of wolves, tracks of two wolves side by side, not far from my house. And, we're also quite remote. So we're about 25 minutes outside of Monroe. So if there's a break-in, the cops are, frankly, just too far away to do much good. They can come and help document what happened, but
they're not gonna save you. When seconds matter, the cops are way too far away.
Well, it's one of those things you should know better than that. They put wolves in Eastern Washington. They stay there. They don't go anywhere else.
Our guest, Elizabeth Scott. You can find out more about her at Elizabeth4state.com. If you are interested in property rights, gun rights, and education, she's for you.
And lower taxes.
Right back.
Doug and Marty, Eyes on Washington, on AM 1590, The Answer.
And we're back. It's Monday, feeling gray.
Feeling gray on Monday?
Well, it was a little gray today, but not bad. It's not quite as cold. It snowed up at Elizabeth's place, but this is Doug Basler.
And Marty McClendon. This is Eyes on Washington. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Obviously, the campaigning this time of year is a little colder than later in the year, but you got to start.
But, you need to get going. You need to get going. And constantly hearing me and Marty say, run for office, get out there, try things, do things, make the effort. The lady that we have with us by way of telephone today, she, exemplifies not only the effort, but also what happens when you get elected.
What is that like, by the way?
Yeah, we want to know.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth Scott is with us. She's running for House, Senate in the 39th district. Her website is Elizabeth4state. That's the number 4 state.com. Please go up there. Please donate. Please, help out if you're up in the 39th. Volunteer. Jump in. Elizabeth is there for you. She is a real patriot. I remember listening to you a couple of years ago and how you said sometimes you just have to say no. So what's that all about?
Right. Well, I was pretty surprised when I first got elected. I was elected in 2012 to the House with about 53%. And I was really surprised that I had to vote no so many times right away in the legislature. And, in fact, it was kind of a joke. A Democrat walked across the aisle and came over to me and said, Elizabeth, we can get that voter thing fixed because it keeps showing, it seems to be stuck on red for no. I said, no, that's okay. If you can send me some good bills, I'll vote yes. But I made a promise to my constituents that I would vote for smaller, smarter government and that I would not vote to increase any taxes or fees or expand the size of government. And by that, that includes adding to agencies, expanding them. I said no. So I ended up voting 290 times against the majority of the Republicans in my freshman term, if you can believe that. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I'm a liberal. I stood completely on the Republican platform, and it's just that so many bills, including, for example, taxpayer-funded scholarships for illegals, unfortunately, over half of the Republicans in the House voted for that. So, sometimes you just got to hit the no button. And by the way, while we're on the subject of the green yes and the red no buttons in the House, the green should have a $ sign on it, because every time you push yes, you're pretty much asking for almost every time, asking for some kind of expansion of government spending.
I have a question for you. I know this is kind of ludicrous. I'm thinking there's green for go, red for stop, yes and no. But shouldn't there be one of those things from a general public standpoint where, okay, to vote green, you have to go buy yellow first. Yellow meaning we have the money for this before we actually choose to spend money on it. That some kind of responsibility where saying, hey, here's our budget. Here's how much we have left. This is going to cost this much money. Now we can vote on it, right?
Right, that would make complete sense, and I really wish people had that kind of attitude in the committees, too. I was horrified when the chair of one of my committees said, oh, Elizabeth, don't ask about how much this bill will cost if we implement it. That's not our job to discuss. It's only our job to look at the policy and vote this bill out of committee so it can be worked on, and then we'll let the fiscal committees figure out how they're going to pay for it. And I just looked at her like, are you nuts? Why not stop it now? If we don't have the money for it, why are we even talking about it?
So
when they see the taxpayers as bottomless ATMs, I mean, that's the mentality. They come up with their wish list, and then they expand taxes to make as much of that wish list happen as they can. It's ludicrous, and it's harmful.
It's harmful. So for our sake, though, you, me, and Doug right now on the air to our listeners are the committee. We should vote for Marty McClendon who's driving a brand new Corvette. So now we'll pass that out and we'll hand it off to somebody else to figure out how to pay it, right? That's basically what we're saying for us. Like, we're going to pass this really great thing that sounds good to us, but we'll find somebody else to find a way to generate the funds, new taxes, on the citizens. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
As business owners, as people, and we should have some kind of like, okay, we're doing this. This is what we expect to see when we do this. It's sort of an ROI, don't you think?
Right. That would make a lot of sense. And, a lot of people don't know that Tax Freedom Day in Washington State was actually April 27th last year. And that means basically if you push all your taxes and fees at the state and federal level to the beginning of the year, you are working all the way up until April 27th just to pay government before you start earning money for yourself and your family. And that is later, that date of April 27th is later than in 39 other states. So that's why people are hurting.
Wow. And of course, we're just now starting to see over the last 12 months, where we live, I live in Gig Harbor, but in the Puget Sound region where the ST3 taxes are coming in, we had the car tabs, now we're seeing property taxes going up, now we're seeing all these, the levies shift through the tax swap for McCleary decisions. So people are getting just run out of their homes, literally. And so you see that we're working later and later in the year just to pay our taxes. That's why we need fiscal conservatives in the Senate, right, Doug?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I was watching Lincoln, the 2012 movie that came out in 2012 about getting the 13th Amendment through. And one of the scenes in the movie that's really stuck out in my mind was he was telling his cabinet, his people, now is the time to do this. This is we've entered the world stage. Now's the time. He's like, I need 2 votes. Get me the 2 votes. And I was just like, as I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel about right now. And with you stepping up to run, and we're 1 seat down from a majority in the Senate. We're 2 seats down from having a majority in the House. And these elections matter. These elections are important. And now is the time, and we can do this. We can win. People, like what Marty just said, I mean, people that live in the Sound Transit District, for goodness sakes, they're getting hammered. Yeah. And but people across the state.
Right. It's awful. And, you need somebody who's going to vote on principle, because then you can trust them. I think that's what happened in the 39th when I ran for re-election. I actually won in 2014 with almost 63%. And that had gone up by 9 percentage points in just 2 years. That's with my very conservative, Republican record of voting. And I think, that's 9 points of independents and Democrats who came on board, not because they agree with me on everything, of course, but because they trusted me to have their back. And they said, well, I did what I said I was going to do. I voted for no higher taxes and no higher fees. I think it affects everybody.
That right there is key. If you can trust the person that you elected to serve you to do what they say they're going to do, it's a huge thing with Donald Trump right now, and a huge thing for you. At Elizabeth, 4 4state.com. You have some endorsements there. Of course, people we've had on our show, Sam Lowe, Matt Shea, Representative Jesse Young, Bob McCaslin, great people, known conservatives, Mark Pidgeon as well. So we know that they wouldn't endorse you unless they believed in that you'd be the right person for the jobs. What else can you...
what do you need? What are you looking for?
What do I need?
Yep.
Well, we're building our team. I have a lot of the key positions already full, but we need lots of volunteers. We're going to be marching in parades. We're going to be building signs here soon. So, and we need people to put up the signs and maintain them because it's a huge district, all the way up to Cedar Woolley and Concrete and even Marble Mount and all the way up to Skycomish. And then, of course, I got most of Arlington, Granite Falls, Oso, Darrington, and Northeast Marysville. So it's a huge district. We need lots of volunteers over the whole area. And even if you don't live in the district, you can still come over and walk in a parade, for example, or maybe host a neighborhood coffee, and invite some more people, whether they can vote for me or not. $5 helps buy a sign. $4 helps buy a sign. So the only thing that people not in the district can't do is they can't vote for me. But everything else is very helpful, and you can do. And so, if they go to the website, they can volunteer on the website at elizabeth4state.com with the number 4 in the middle. And they can also sign up to get our emails, which I promise we don't deluge you with emails, but we will let you know when a fundraiser is coming up or an event like a parade in your area so you can come join us.
And it's fun. It's fun to get involved with Elizabeth. She has tons of energy, super sweet lady. And her daughter's name is Libby, same as mine, so that's pretty cool. Always, I met Libby a couple of times at a couple of events. I was like, I have a Libby. So very cool.
Wonderful.
Again, the website, elizabeth4state.com. And, Doug and Marty like her.
That's right.
So, if you don't like Doug and Marty, forget that part. But I think we can expect great things from State Senator Elizabeth Scott in 2019. I think that'd be a great place to be.
Yep. Keep us posted as the campaign goes along. If you need any updates, let us know.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on.
Our pleasure. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about the new Steele dossier, among other things. And I just can't get over the Steele dossier thing, man. It's one of those things that gets like caught in
you're clever, right? It's like,
no, it's just.
Yeah, I know. The whole.
The other one was fake, so why wouldn't this one
there we
be
go.
fake too?
But better.
I'm just saying. But it's
Me too. Let's go.
No! Hashtag me too, brother. That's your.
No, I know. Not the same thing.
Your virtue signaling. We're gonna be back after the break. This is Doug Basler
and Marty McClendon. Eyes on Washington.
Catch me, Mike Gallagher, this evening at 10 with all the national news. But now it's Eyes on Washington with Doug and Marty here on AM 1590, The Answer.
And we're back. This is Doug Basler.
And Marty McClendon. This is Eyes on Washington. We are back.
It's a crazy day to be alive, to be conservative, to be, stuck in a small room with Marty McClendon.
Well, Monday's the best day to do that, by the way.
Is it?
Fresh off the weekend,
I noticed you
plenty
shaved.
of patience.
You shaved today.
Built
That's
up,
cool.
I came in casual, so I didn't sweat.
Last year, you kept you'd go weeks without shaving, and then you'd shave.
Yes.
And you'd almost get a really good beard thing, and then you'd shave it. And what's the deal? I don't know.
It's funny. I go 3 or 4 days, and it actually starts looking pretty good. And then it gets into a week and a half, it looks terrible. And then I get in about 3 weeks, I'm like, all right, do I grow this or do I not grow this? And
and then you chicken out.
Well,
bail.
It's. I look at the calendar and go, well, I can do it for about another 4 weeks, then I have to shave it no matter what, so I might as well shave now.
So, we talked on previous programs about, the invading Canada.
Yes. We didn't. You did, but yes.
Well, you keep bringing it up.
I
just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay.
So the Steele dossier, which is not a dossier, but the Steele tariff threat,
yes,
primarily affects Canada. It's not a China thing. We get a little teeny bit of steel from China. It's some cheap stuff.
Right.
It's not really good for anything. You can build a Mini Cooper out of it or something, but other than that, it's not really good for anything. But the real good steel, the steel that, we use to put in your backbone, that comes from Canada. So that's
I have vibranium in my backbone.
Vibranium?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Do you have a vibranium cat suit?
I don't, but I might have a vibranium shield,
Yes,
yeah.
Definitely. So did you go see the Black Panther?
No, I wanted to take both my daughters to go, and they both went, can we go window shopping instead? I go, really? Sure. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my daughters, I took my teenage daughters, and they both liked it. They thought it was pretty awesome.
Nice.
But steel is real, and vibranium is not.
Well, so far,
So we haven't discovered any vibranium.
It's not on the periodic table yet.
And aluminum also comes from Canada, our northern neighbor, our friendly northern neighbor.
Okay. I want, first of all, just a little segment here. We used to have, between Kaiser and Alcoa, humongous amounts of jobs created by the aluminum plants.
Yeah.
And yet, through regulation, legislation, and the sort of conservation movement, the green movement, they shut them down. All across Wenatchee, Spokane area, and it's frustrating because those are jobs.
Well, and the thing about aluminum, especially the way we did it here, Alcoa and Kaiser particularly, was it was green.
Yeah.
It was a super green. It used hydro electricity. Now, a lot of times they say, well, aluminum's bad because it uses all this electricity, but our electricity from Grand Coulee, which you used to live next to, I believe you actually had a home on Grand Coulee, right?
Right below it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
it wasn't in the dam.
It wasn't in the dam.
It was
or
near
in
the
water,
dam.
Yes.
And but the amount of electricity that thing puts out, along with all the other BPA dams on the Columbia, allowed us to have a very green, very vibrant, very
renewable.
Renewable aluminum industry. This carbon tax, I guess, is dead. Although some things they passed a bill that has nothing in it. That it could come back. So
title only bills or something like that. Yeah.
Stay in your.
Nothing's ever gone. They push it, doesn't pass. They get it ready for next year. It's like that incremental, just a little bit more each year. We've seen this on just about everything the left wants to do over time. It seems like we get numb to it, and all of a sudden it passes the next session. So be on guard against this stuff. But yeah, Larry Kudlow has an article in the Daily Caller today about tariffs are taxes, basically saying tariffs are bad. Larry Kudlow was the guy that Donald Trump on the campaign trail kept on saying, Larry Kudlow likes my budget. Larry Kudlow, because he's pretty well known as far as being pretty conservative, but actually being very to the point. The facts are. And so he has an article basically going through and saying that every time we've done a tariff, especially since 1929, the Smoot-Hawley tariff of 1929, signed into law by Republican President Herbert Hoover, led us through the Great Depression. Richard Nixon signed one in a 10% surcharge in 1970s, led us into another sort of recession. And so he says, be careful. He said, what will happen is in the short term, we'll save 5 million jobs. In the short term, we'll have a bump, but in the long term, it may actually hurt us. So, like you said, it may just be for negotiation and Trump doing Trump. But tariffs, he goes, literally are. The taxes are passed on to us by the cost going up. What do you think?
Sure. And, maybe might be more fun if you could, like, all the revenue from the tariff would go to help revitalize our steel and aluminum industries.
Right.
As opposed to just going into a government thing.
Instead of general fund, it should go back to reinvesting. Yeah, and maybe career skills for those in the industry, maybe improving the process. Who knows? That might be a good win-win solution.
So is Canada playing fair with the steel industry? I don't know how is Canada able to produce steel and aluminum cheaper than us? It's got to have to do with the regulations. Am I right?
It's got to be regulations. Obviously, there could be labor costs as well, but they are kind of.
But I mean, labor costs. I mean, Canada has a high minimum wage. They have all this.
Correct. I know for anecdotally, a doctor friend of mine many years ago, so prices have gone up, was having his retirement boat built. I mean, I have a lot of friends that have like these 50-footers they live on, whatever. He wanted to build a 110-foot ocean liner. And literally, it was made out of steel, right? Steel, the whole thing, and it was like half the price by being built in Canada versus in America. And that is completely because of the regulations, because of the permits required for it, because of the size, because of the cost of the steel.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, perhaps this is just a Trump way to like stop the that from happening here while we fix the regulations and stuff. I don't know.
It could be,
but I do see it as a Trump. He always throws down with the big threat first. We always end up, if you read Art of the Deal, which I did twice, you go for big and then you wind up somewhere in the middle. It's almost like when you go shopping at in Tijuana,
right.
They go, I want $50 for this vase, and you go, I think 25, and then you end up getting it for 35. $8 or something, right? It's kind of like in the middle somewhere.
Well, it's one of those things in Tijuana, too, just for another anecdotal thing. I went down there one time years and years ago. I wanted a Corona tank top. It was the coolest thing ever, right?
You probably still have it.
The first place I went to, they go $5, right? And then we're negotiating. And then I went back to the next place, and it was $3. And the next place sold it for $1. So, but it's like at one point in time, I'm like, could I have gotten it cheaper, right? It's the idea is you have to negotiate. And there, they were starting off with $5. If the white guy will pay $5, then we just made money, right? And they probably could sell it for $1 and make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it was stolen. The guy that sold it for $1 stole it from the guy that sells it for $5.
Probably. Anyway.
I mean, we're talking about Tijuana here. So you're for, against? I guess I don't know enough about economics.
I know that he was working to renegotiate this deal, so he got us out of the Paris Accords. I'm thankful for that. I think that he's cutting regulations back to 1960s levels. I think that's great. I think renegotiating NAFTA will be good for America. But I think, like you said, this is a volley across the bow. If it ends up being tariffs to protect these jobs, I understand that the emotion or the reason for doing it. But I do believe that people like Larry Kudlow have a point saying, be careful, this has not worked in the past. It's like the left wants to keep on trying socialism over and over again, and it doesn't work. It never works. Mm-hmm. So
tariffs along the same line.
Yes.
Yeah. Stock market obviously didn't like it, and then today when he announced that he was willing to negotiate this, then the stock market rebounded heavily and quickly. So, we'll keep our eyes on it.
Yes, we will.
It's nice to have a president, though, that cares about American jobs, American people. And in that, I think we're good. It'll also be interesting because in some of the steel country, Midwest and stuff like that, there are some special elections going on right now, and see how they'll do.
That's a good point. That's right.
Because if they like it, they'll vote the Republican way.
The right side.
Anyways, we're going to be back tomorrow because that's what we do. This is Doug Basler.
And Marty McClendon. Take care. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Eyes on Washington with Marty McClendon and Doug Basler. Learn more about the program and listen to past broadcasts at eyesonwashingtonmedia.com. Did you like today's show? Well, you're also invited to like the program on Facebook at facebook.com/eyesonwashingtonmedia. Send any questions or comments you might have to radio@eyesonwashingtonmedia.com. And join Marty and Doug every weeknight at 7 for more Eyes on Washington, right here on AM 1590. The Answer.